quick critique, and I want to underline the word quick. This will be the fastest, shortest critique we have. Just because I don't want to waste your time, I just want to give you an idea of where you stand and how you did. Let me reiterate this. Do not post files or anything that I can't see unless you're turning in files to an assignment area. You can turn in those AI files for your image tracing assignment. But if you see a file name and not the actual image you made, you have done it wrong, and it will not be graded or opened. And someone at the end of this did that. And so you're not going to get a critique. And if it's not remedied by the time I grade these on Friday, these are due. Any revised, and you may or may not want to revise these depending on the comments I make on yours. Any revisions will be due Friday at midnight. All right, so what I look for when critiquing this is really the variety of tools you've experimented with, the number of techniques you've experimented with. If I see the same thing over and over, I know that you've done the minimum amount of work. Yeah, you used one tool, then you arranged it. You copy and pasted, you scaled, you rotated. The reality is, the point of this assignment was to get you to experiment with the tools. That's how you learn. Illustrator is you play around with it. So, Upe, I hope I'm saying that right. You've done a little bit here. So you've played with the pen tool, I can see, and you've made some straight lines. What I don't see is any real curve lines except for maybe one or two. And then you have a bunch of circles. And again, you're playing with primitives here. You're not creating your own shapes. And this isn't particularly experimental, explorative. Same thing here. So I applaud you. You used the gradient tool in this one, and I guess you'd used it over here too. But I would have liked to have seen maybe the gradient direction change. You play with that gradient tool, change the gradient. You can make multiple gradients within a gradient. I would have liked to seen other tools utilized here to make each of these a little more interesting. So I see room for improvement. Also, you should note that I'm never going to tell you your grade in a critique. I'll just tell you if you could make it better or not. And, if you can make it better, then your grade could get better, right? So there's your hint. Just know that none of these I don't think I've seen, and I've gone through them all, are below average, but a lot of them are just average, which is a C, just so we're clear. 75, that's what a C is. So I want you to know that ahead of time. I'm not saying that's what you got, Upe. And if it's not Upe, it's Oop or Yoop. I'm going to have to ask you. I apologize for not knowing how to say your name. When I zoomed with you, I should have asked. That bad is on me. All right, Brooke. There's a name I know I can say. So you've created a repeating pattern. That's cool. But then you've also created the same elements repeated and the same elements repeated, right? So right now you've shown me you can make a hockey puck, a hexagon, and a bunch of guitar pick shapes. I think you have a couple of more interesting ones in here, maybe one or two, but most of these are very similar type of ovals. I would have loved to have seen just more tools used in each one of these, right? So this one, you use the tool, you created this object. I like the fact that you use the gradient on there to make it a little shiny. That's a very nice touch. But really, it's similar objects just repeated. Similar objects repeated. Similar objects repeated. So I'm going to say room for improvement. All right, Ryan. This is awesome. This is what I'm looking for. You used all sorts of tools. This was probably some kind of star that you went in and modified. You used a pen tool. You used a couple of gradients. So that's kind of the idea. I'm going to give you hats off to that. Well, technically, all you did was use circles here. You got circles going this way and circles going this way. You used a lot of effort, and you used them in a very clever way. You not only scaled them, but you changed their value. So I'm going to say that for this execution, this works. And this one here again, look, here's what I'm looking for, folks. He used different pen tools. There are different pen tips you can use. There's libraries of them. And Ryan went in here and used some. And you can see how interesting this makes it when compared to just constant shapes, right? just very constant, discrete shapes. So, so Ryan, I think you're probably good to go. Is it another one, or is that the same one over? Oh, it is. It's a different one. It's slightly different background with another gradient in the background. And notice that he used a radial gradient here and another radial gradient, and then these are just straight up, or not even a gradient. Nice. Okay, so there's different kinds of gradients too, folks. Brian. Okay, Brian, we got to talk. You made boxes and scaled them and arranged them. You made lines and then you modified one into a squiggly line. And then you did the same repeated form. So Ryan, I'm going to say that you definitely have room for improvement on your amount of experimentation you've done. So there's definitely a lot of room to move on that. And I look at these as a whole, right? Because you could have one like Ryan had over here. Is it Ryan? Yeah, Ryan and Ryan. And he had one that used to use one tool basically, but then that was balanced with these other ones, okay? And what I'm seeing in all of these is you just taken one tool and worked with it, and that was it. That was it. So try harder. Okay, Aaron. I like your emphasis here, but I'm going to say from the outset, yeah, you've used nothing but stars. So Aaron, you definitely need to do a whole lot more experimentation because you just used one tool for all of these, and I'm not even going to say that that's average. Not even a gradient. So I feel like this was kind of minimal effort on that. Anna George. Oh, cool. It's kind of an eyeballish looking thing without being an eyeball. Definitely emphasis. Definitely got a little movement in it. So we played with circles, you played with lines, you played with filling with different backgrounds. This one's kind of a repetition, more or less. And then, oh, and I asked you to stay away from literal things, and smiley faces are literal. So I'm going to say that I like the first one, the second one, and the third one definitely not. Just because I think you started off playing with a couple of tools, and then you just kind of took a box and pulled a corner in, and took a box and pulled a corner in, and took a box and pulled a corner over. So I think that you definitely have room for some improvement, and I would not even try to remake this one. Don't give me anything that looks like anything in particular on this assignment, because the whole point was it was to be abstract and to not be literal, and smiley faces are literal. I once had some back problems, and they gave me a little chart with these little faces, and I had to point to which one I felt like. Shanice. Let's see what we have here. Interesting. It's kind of like a basketball. That's really interesting. And I'm going to say that's unity. Now you're playing with more straight lines and another primitive here, so it's not showing me a whole lot of experimentation. You have a primitive and a straight lines here. And more primitive. So Shanice, I'm going to say you need to do a little more work perhaps, only in that I'm not seeing a variety of tools used. I'm not seeing a variety of brush strokes, folks. Look at what Ryan did here with the brush strokes. You see how these squiggles are fat and thin? There are all sorts of brushes in your brush library. Your brush has libraries you can open up, and there's all sorts of ones. There's watercolor brushes. There's ink brushes. There's paint brushes. There's stippling. There's all sorts of splatter kind of stuff. There's all sorts of cool stuff you can do. And that's what I want to see you folks doing, and I haven't seen anybody really nail it over here. So that's kind of room for improvement for sure. Jamie. Okay, what do we have here? Is that 1? Is that 2? And that's 3? Okay. Again, could be more interesting. You've just used a straight line tool. You've just used boxes, and you've just used circles. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say I would probably want to revisit this, because while visually I can see that you have some visual strengths, I think you might have done design before. Were you the one who did in your introductions design before? I might be thinking of the photo class. I hate it when I grade two things in one day. I get my people mixed up. But the bottom line is that I think that there could be more variety in the techniques. It doesn't mean you have to start over, right? You can rework these. You can change. You can select one of these lines and change the kind of brush it is. You could choose to fill an area, right? You could choose to fill these with gradients. You could choose to change the outlines of these with different brushes to make it more interesting. In this case, you could even choose to rotate some of these, right, if you wanted to. And the same goes for there. And Trent, I don't know what to say except follow directions. I won't open these for critique, and I won't open them to grade them. Because following directions in life is important, and that's one of the lessons you're going to learn at university. And that is, you got to do what the boss wants, or if the boss isn't going to be happy. Anyhow, that is all my critiques. Hopefully, Trent, you watched this and you took something away from everybody else's critiques. The other ones will be longer in the future, and that's how it is. But this was pretty short and sweet and to the point. I will be grading these over the weekend. Get your revisions up by Friday, and please, 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 please mark any revisions up as redo. If you're going to redo one out of the three, please post all three again with the redo marked, okay? Even though you're only redoing one out of the three. Only because it saves me from having to search for the rest of your work. I don't want to get your work confused with somebody else's and accidentally give you the wrong grade. You don't want that either. So, if you are going to repost any redos, repost all of them. You don't have to redo all of them. Maybe you have one out of the three you want to redo, or two out of the three. Repost them all, and either mark them in the title at the top with redo, or revision, or yeah, something to that effect to cue me in as to what your intent is. Thank you. That is all. I hope you find this helpful.